Put your headset on. Let's have some fun.
All right, let's try.
It's the lighting that does it too, man. You look beautiful.
Appreciate it.
So we've got Rocky Winston here from Spinelli Residential, part of a team. Patty and I talked a little bit about that, some of the benefits of a team and everything along those lines. And you said the words that I love to hear when people come in here. They're like, make me look good. And I feel like that's something that I'm getting good at.
Yeah.
This kind of forum seems to really be producing some good content instead of kind of getting up there and being like, all right, go say your thing. So we've got you in here, real estate agent with that group. How long have you been with Spinelli?
Coming into my second year now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was that is that when you started your career real estate wise? Was it with Spinelli or did you work somewhere before that?
It was directly from real estate school straight in.
Perfect. So I've got a ton of questions for you because a lot of what I am trying to accomplish on this podcast is not only to create clips for potential clients that kind of want to troll us, right? That might be like hesitant to contact a real estate agent directly. They're thinking about maybe buying or selling, but all of a sudden they go to the Google and start Googling around and they can find you, and we can give them tidbits of everything that that they might want to know without having to contact somebody. But in addition to that, I also like doing this podcast with like an entrepreneurial type of thing. Real estate agents are kind of self-employed, and I've had a lot of other business owners on here like CPAs, financial advisors. We had a builder. We had Amy Goldberg with Seamless Contracts was on here.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So you being somewhat of a newer agent gives me an opportunity to kind of go over things and kind of explain, because it's fresh on your mind. You ask any agent with 5+ years and they tell you that their entire business is circled around their sphere of influence and all of their business comes through referrals. But when I talk to newer agents, it seems like there's more to it than that. And I think some of these veterans forget the early days. So how did you connect with Jeanette? What did you do after you went to real estate school? You decided you wanted to be a real estate agent, and then what?
And then I decided that, I wanted to work for the best. So I looked up, the top performing teams in Austin.
Okay.
And her name came up. I interviewed with the top 3 teams in Austin at the time and decided on Jeanette's team. So
I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a real estate agent on here last week that basically talked about, it was Kaylee Kemps with Lone Wolf Realty, and she talked about how she did not do what you did and kind of wished that she did.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that she identified, and I think a lot of real estate agents would resonate with this, and I'd like to get your opinion, but you go to real estate school, you learn about everything you need to know, you know all the answers, but then when it comes down to dealing with the client or regurgitating those answers, you're like, you kind of freeze up.
Right. Am I saying the right thing? It's
right.
Repeatedly said in your head.
Yeah, and what's crazy is like you passed the test. You could probably be even quizzed with seller questions and you can do it. But when you're on the spot, you're kind of like, oh, am I doing the right thing? I mean, did you experience that?
Of course. I think everybody goes through something similar.
Right. And so really it's one of those things I always say with real estate in general. And I think just, kind of running your own business. There's no like college you can go to. There's no real like school. You got to get out there. You've got to do it. You've got to make mistakes. Mm-hmm. And so with, joining a team like Spinelli Residential, it kind of gives you an opportunity to shadow, oversee other things, kind of get, I'm sure you guys do your think tanks and kind of go over what other transactions that other agents are looking at. And you kind of can enhance your expertise that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I like that. I mean, again, thinking about all of I don't know what it is, if it's in the air. Here we're in one of the slower markets we've been in the last few years, and I'm running into a ton of people that are kind of, just asking me. I'm not a real estate agent, but they're like, I'm thinking about getting into real estate.
Yeah.
And honestly, my head initially, I don't say it out loud, but I think, why? Why now? Right?
Right.
But I think hearing from you and hearing from some of these other agents, and again, you don't have anything really to compare, but doing it the way you are doing it is probably best practices, because it's going to make you a better agent faster than having to make all those mistakes on your own, not getting paid.
Yeah.
And, well, let's face it, maybe even having some clients with some bad experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you currently doing now, or even in the last few years, that's been generating new business for you? What seems to be working for you?
For me, it's really open houses, I would have to say.
Okay.
That belly-to-belly interaction seems to bring a lot more, I don't know, openness when it comes to talking about real estate. I think some people's first reaction can be like a knee-jerk reaction when it comes to talking about purchasing a home because it's such a big decision.
Yeah.
So if you can get in front of somebody and really speak to them, I feel like it's an easier conversation than just talking to somebody randomly on the phone.
I like it. And then, so are you kind of knocking it out of the park on the initial connection, or are you doing the follow-up? What does that look like?
It's a lot of follow-up, to be honest.
Follow-up.
Yeah.
Right
You know,
on.
that first impression's important because you want to know, them to know that you're a genuine person and you're there for their best interest. But that follow-up's going to be what really connects you to.
I got you. Well, in a blanketed, question, there's no wrong answer. Who do you feel like you're connecting with mainly at these open houses right now? Is it first-time home buyers? Is it younger people, older people, everything in between? I mean, who seems to be, if you really think about it?
I think right now it's a lot of investors out there looking for money. So, because there's a lot left on the table. The rate's high right now, so, there's a lot of advantage when it comes to purchasing a home, especially from an investor's standpoint.
Okay. So you got a lot of investors coming into open houses. You're having those conversations and then following up and doing all the stuff.
Yeah.
I dig it. I mean, again, there's no wrong answer, and I'm trying to give those nuggets to the community that's out there. What's your thought on investors as far as your personal business? And what I mean by that is that, some agents really resonate towards first-time home buyers. Other agents resonate towards, like move-up buyers. Others prefer listings. Some do go after investors only. Is there I know you'd work with anybody, but is there a particular type that you feel like you bring more value to than any of the others?
I would say it's probably, honestly, a first-time home buyer that I bring more value to, just because I've only purchased one house in my experience.
Right.
So I kind of understand that a little bit more. And, just looking out for their best interests.
Right on. So when you're working with first-time home buyers, is there a pain point or like a almost public service announcement that you would give to your first-time home buyers that you feel like you're running into right now? Maybe mistakes or misconceptions that you kind of, when you're having conversations with them, that you run into?
I would say here lately, the one that stands out at the top of my mind is somebody, you're not going to get $100,000 off of an asking price.
Okay.
Like to be realistic that there is room for negotiations now, but there's not like this one deal that's better than everything else out there.
Okay. Well, let's unpack that because this is, a great soundbite, I think. So if I'm a first-time home buyer and I'm shopping around and I connect with you and I'm like, oh my God, Rocky's the man. He's going to take care of me. And we're looking at properties and I've watched like 15 TikToks and a couple of, Instagram reels. And I'm under the impression that right now is a buyer's market and I'm going to get the best deal ever. And kind of to your point, I'm coming in with the mentality that I'm going to get hundreds of $1,000s off. What do you do as a real estate agent to kind of bring that to reality? And what are some of the facts and data points that you're bringing to me to say, okay, look, this is realistic and here's where we really need to be?
I think the easiest way to answer that would be through a price band approach.
Okay.
By pulling similar houses within a certain area and showing them like, the best house sold for this, the mediocre house sold for this, and then the house that needed a lot of renovation sold for this.
Right.
And kind of just bring them into a full spectrum approach as opposed to thinking, I'm going to get $100,000 off this house.
Right. So kind of looking at the actual comparable sales and saying, hey, here's what's real, because I guess I don't have the answer to this. What do you feel, where do you feel buyers, especially first-time home buyers, get their numbers from when they come to you and say, hey, I see this house is listed at $400,000. Let's go in at $300 and see what happens.
I think it's the HGTV effect. Right?
Okay.
So they throw up these numbers on the screen, and you're like, wow, look at that deal that they just got. But really, it's Hollywood. It's not reality.
So, there's HGTV isn't showing you the actual comparable sales in the area and everything like that.
Right.
Gotcha. And then, in addition to the deals, the 100,000 or whatever it is there anything outside of, I guess what I'm driving at is how do you handle the objection of a buyer when they say, yeah, I get it, the comparable sales might not be there, but let's just write up the contract and send it in and see what happens?
I would really strongly encourage them not to do that, especially if it's a house that they want to get, because they could offend that seller.
Okay.
And
What do you mean by offend?
you know, if you have a $500,000 house and I come in and say I'll give you $400,000 for it, take it or leave it, it's gonna piss you off.
Yeah.
So if that is a house that you're wanting to get, then don't do that.
Okay.
But if you're just gonna be shotgunning out offers all over the city, I guess that's a strategy to take. I'm not sure.
Well, I ask, I ask not for me, obviously, but for the people out there, and I think that what I've seen is, I think people forget that when you're making an offer on a property, you are making an offer on a property that you look at as 4 walls and a roof, and you're maybe going to live in eventually. But the people who currently own that house may have raised children in that home, have made improvements in that home, have had holidays in that home, and I hear the line a lot in this business that sometimes it kind of makes me cringe, where the line is, well, it's just business. And unfortunately, in real estate, there can be a lot of emotion involved.
Absolutely.
And so when you've got a buyer who's coming in and you're presenting comparable sales and saying, look, here's realistically what we can get this home for. And as a buyer, I come in and say, well, Rocky, just write it up and let's just see what happens. I honestly believe that is a soundbite that we need to get out, because I don't think there's enough people out there that understand how much that can really hurt you in getting that home. So have you ever run into any issues like that, or short stories of somebody who just ultimately demanded putting in this super low, and we have offended a seller and it's really come back to bite them?
Sure. I think it was towards the end of COVID. We were looking around in the historic district of Georgetown, and we found, honestly, the perfect place. And we submitted an offer that was way too low. And not only did they say, no, we don't accept your offer, they said, please don't submit anything else. We don't want to hear from you.
Wow.
This is our house, and we're not just going to sell it to just any investor.
So yeah, I think that's a good public service announcement, is that, you as a seller, you don't have to sell your home.
Right.
And if you really do offend somebody, they can just flat out say, like, not only are we not going to sell it at that price, but you are not eligible any longer to buy this home. Like, case closed.
Yeah.
So I love it. I mean, this is honestly, all of this is getting edited and everything. It's stuff like that. That's an amazing soundbite. So, we'll keep you moving on that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, outside of the offers that we talked about, you said under 100,000, or excuse me, writing super lowball offers. Is there anything else that you would kind of say to buyers or sellers similar to that, like, hey, don't do this, or do this. This is working. When you said the first thing that came to mind was lowball offers. Is there anything else that comes to mind as like a public service announcement that you want to get out to your clients?
I don't think a lot of first-time home buyers are aware that they can ask for concessions.
Okay.
And possibly lower their rate. So that's something that I think a lot of first-time home buyers, if they knew that, they would probably take advantage of this market that we're in.
Well, let's talk a little bit about it. Concessions. What do you mean by that?
So when you're making an offer, you can ask for money back from the seller.
Okay.
And then that money can be used to buy down your rate. And we're seeing even 3-2-1 buy downs with this current rate. So, looking at 4.5 is a lot better than a 7.5.
For sure. And it's going to make a drastic difference in your payment. I mean, when you're able to buy that interest rate down, 3%, for example, I mean, you're talking about a $250 monthly difference per $100,000.
Right.
So, I mean, I think average purchase price in the Austin area right now, just average, is around $400,000. So you're talking about a possibility of $1,000 a month lower in your payment by asking the sellers to buy that rate down.
Yeah, and a lot of them are willing to do it because, we're in a stagnated market. So it makes a lot more sense to accept an asking price offer with that concession than it does a lower priced offer without it.
I agree. Well, it makes more sense for everybody, right? Because the sellers are going to net what they want to net, and then the buyers are going to utilize that to get that payment that they actually want. Why do you think, as a lender, we really started pushing buy downs about 18 months ago, believe it or not? So here we are a year and a half later, and I'm finally starting to see these things become a little more predominant? What do you feel has been there? I mean, it certainly isn't because the lenders haven't been explaining it. Because I feel like if I have to explain another 215, I like stop doing it, right?
Oh, I'm sure.
What do you think it is that's kind of the misconception with either the public or maybe it's the real estate community? Where do you think that hang up comes from? And maybe you don't have the answer, but what are your thoughts?
I think it really comes down to the fact that it's temporary, that a buyer doesn't want to buy into something that in 3 years from now might be worse.
Yeah, it might go up.
Yeah.
So they kind of just, as soon as they hear that temporary, they kind of tune out.
I feel like that might be it, but what do I know?
Well, I mean, one of the comments that I've been making for about 5 years now, and it seems like it's more predominant now than ever, is one thing that I've always realized about this business is people really love the word guarantee. They want guarantees, and there just really are no guarantees in real estate.
Right.
I mean, one of the misconceptions I always talk about is, and I think this is more geared towards sellers than buyers, is like, you go under contract, and it's almost like buyers and sellers are like, all right, sweet, it's done. We'll just wait until, title transfers, and we'll give keys or get keys, and it's a done deal. And here we've got, a couple weeks in escrow, and it's like, no, guys, listen, there's a lot of moving parts here. There's a lot that can happen from now until the actual date of transfer and everything. And I think people think that when they sign that contract, they're done. It's a guarantee. I mean, do you ever experience that? Obviously, you're educating, but like on the initial conversation, do you run into anything like that? Or when things pop up and they're like, well, wait a minute, what are you talking about?
I try to educate as much as I can, right, to avoid that from happening. I haven't personally experienced it, but I can see it happening a lot. There's 180 different moving parts in a single transaction. So, it makes sense that some of that gets lost in translation.
Yeah. Well, and on the flip side of things, right? So now you've got people that are excited at the fact that we're under contract and maybe treating it like a guarantee. The flip side, and this is something that I've been trying to, kind of get more information out about, is the actual option period. And what I'm getting at is that I run into situations with real estate agents where we have a buyer, we get them pre-approved, we know what their budget is, and they're looking at properties. And then all of a sudden, maybe a buyer finds a property, they're interested, they reach out to me, and they're like, Matt, what would our payment look like on this? And, we kind of run it down, and they say, okay, we're going to take the weekend to think about it, right? Mm-hmm. And what I'm kind of trying to get the information out is about option period, where it's like, would you spend $200, $300 to write this offer? And God forbid the weekend goes by and all of a sudden, maybe JC comes to you and says, don't buy this house, you can back out, right?
Right.
I think that there's a huge misconception about what that option period is and what it means. And I kind of want you to run with it and, give an explanation as to how all of that works.
How an option period works?
Yeah, and what it means to me as a buyer. And, if I sign a contract and I put up my option money, is it a done deal? We talked about these guarantees. Like, can I back out if I want to? Like, what's that look like?
You can absolutely back out. That's what you pay option money for. But that period of time is for us to do our due diligence, and the negotiations don't stop at the offer, right? That option period is the period that we use to find what needs to be repaired on a home.
Okay.
And we can use that to still continue our negotiations. And, there's a lot of things.
But what if the house is perfect? And I really don't have anything to say bad about it. If I'm within my option period, can I back out just because, I don't know, I just don't feel it anymore?
Yes.
So I can just, for no reason at all. And if the sellers are like, well, why didn't you like it? I can literally say, I just changed my mind.
Yeah, or you found another option.
Done deal.
Yep.
Right? And then what am I on the hook for at that point? Am I going to be charged any money?
You'll be on the hook for your option money.
Just the option money.
That's right.
And then I think a lot of people get confused option money versus earnest money.
Right.
Right. So like maybe I put up a couple $100 for option, which we covered, but then I've got my earnest money.
That's your good faith money.
Right. Do I lose my earnest money if I back out of that before that option period?
Absolutely not. That comes back to you.
I love it. So that's kind of what I want to get out, is that soundbite for people to kind of say, hey, listen, for a couple $100, do you really want to lose this home? Because Have you ever run into an incident where somebody kind of said, hey, I love it, I'm interested, I need the weekend to think about it, and then you come back and it's either in a multiple offer situation or it's just gone?
Yeah, yeah, that happens quite often, actually. It's like that old saying that whenever you like something, somebody else is going to find it and they're going to like it too.
Right.
So, yeah, that happens quite a bit.
So would you encourage a buyer that if they like the home, do they a couple $100 maybe losing it like it, that they should write on it then and there and then decide over the weekend at least throw their hat in the ring? Or would you kind of say, hey, take the weekend, maybe it'll be here?
No, no way.
Definitely the latter.
I think if I walk through a home and I'm with somebody and I can tell that they really like a home, I try to stop them there at the house and let them know, like, hey, if this is the one, then let's move forward on it.
Yeah.
Because if we leave this house and somebody else comes in and they like that house, it's no longer going to be an option for us. We're going to be in a backup scenario or multiple offers, and it's not going to be good.
Yeah, I feel like even if it's 80% the one,
Right.
would you stand to lose a couple $100 over it? And I don't know, maybe I'm thinking with my own wallet, but if you're purchasing a $500,000 home, I think you could stand to lose like $200-300, right?
$300 to hold the house for 7 days.
Yeah, it makes too much sense, right?
Right.
Any other pain points you're up against, whether it's with your buyers or sellers, or even just generating new business as a self-employed real estate agent?
Pain points. Do you mean like things that I don't enjoy doing, or?
Well, yeah. If you want to cut into that, I'm sure we can produce something. I was thinking more along the lines of, what's keeping you from closing more deals, man?
I think really it's just getting out in front of people for me. I need
Okay.
to meet more people and just kind of get more into that whole getting to know people.
Is that through networking? Is that through stuff like this? Is that why you're here?
That's why I'm here, man.
Look at that. Well, good, man. I mean, so as far as getting to know people, you're looking for buyers, you're looking for sellers. But from a networking standpoint, is there anyone that you feel like you've identified as far as a type of business that is your biggest referral partner? So I'll give you an example. I had a real estate agent in here about a month ago that said the majority of his business comes through things that he generates on his own. However, he has 2 people that he went to college with that are now job recruiters that recruit from out of state, that bring people in mainly for tech and things like that. And his buddy does a really good job of saying, hey, let me get you connected with a real estate agent for rental, right?
Right.
And getting them, showing them around, getting them a place. And he said he's been really successful at turning those rentals into buyers. And so right there, staffing agency was his answer.
That's smart.
Right?
Yeah.
There
really
you go.
Smart.
There's a nugget for you.
Yeah, I'm taking that one home.
Is there anything that you've identified maybe though, like in terms of referrals? Like I'll give you another example. I know for a fact that as a real estate agent, one of your highest referral partners should be a financial advisor, right?
Right.
I don't know if you have financial advisors you rub elbows with or anything along those lines, but if you don't, there's the public service announcement. Rocky is out there looking for financial advisors to connect with, because the financial advising community can really benefit when you're out with your buyers. You can have conversations in regards to down payment options. And some of those down payment options might be what are called orphaned 401ks. Do you know what that is?
I don't.
An orphaned 401k is a 401k that is with a company that somebody used to work for but no longer works for them. And when they leave, that 401k stays with that company. So let's just use like Dell, for example. You worked at Dell for 10 years, and then you ended up getting another job at, I don't know, HP, and that 401k is now at Dell. Well, that 401k should be rolled over to an advisor that that person knows and likes and trusts. And so advisors are constantly looking for these orphan 401ks, but you're in a position to ask, hey, as far as your down payment, are we doing cash? Are we doing checking, savings, money market, 401k? Do you have a 401k? And if they're like, yeah, like, are any of them with organizations that are not with the actual company that you work for? And you'd be surprised at how many people go, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a dream for a financial advisor.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So for you to refer that information to a financial advisor, that is a big ticket item. And well, let's face it, most people, when they go to buy a home, who do they consult? Their financial advisor.
Sure.
And then they can say, you got to work with this rock star agent that I know with Spinelli Residential. And that's a good symbiosis there as far as, new business is concerned.
Sure.
So is there anything like that you feel like you're organically already doing that maybe you haven't identified?
I think for me, just being a new agent, the only type of referral thing that's been quite effective for me is just my agent-to-agent relationship.
Okay.
I have met a few people that send me either rentals or clients that they don't have time for, or clients that are interested in their listings that they're representing. And I've found a lot of success through that. So
I love that you said that because, you've got these organizations like, I know one of them that is pretty big is like Austin Real Estate Professionals, like AREP. And I've talked to agents that don't go to events like that. They don't feel it's necessary to network with their other agents or their peers because in their minds, they're like, that doesn't generate me business. And so now you're telling me straight up that your relationship with other agents does generate business. So that I'm like happy to hear that because I've heard the exact opposite from other agents. Because when I first got into this business, doing these like real estate meetups, if you will, it was commonplace. Like agents always wanted to be in front of other agents for the exact reason that you're talking about. And then in addition to that, we all talk about the importance of our clients' experience when they're buying or selling, right? Isn't it a way better experience when you know the agent on the other end?
absolutely. You're handing them off to somebody that's going to take care of them and that they're in good hands.
Well, even on the buy and sell side, like if I'm selling a home and you're bringing me a buyer, we know each other.
Right.
That transaction is going to be way smoother and way easier when you and I are like, hey, I know Rocky's, let's I can go to my sellers and say, hey, at least I know the agent on the other end of this if we're in multiple offers. So there's total value in knowing other agents, not just for that reason, but for what you talked about.
Yeah.
So you think it's on the rental side, or what more are you seeing from other agents that's been lucrative to you?
Well, not only open house opportunities, but
Okay.
Just when they're holding a listing and somebody calls that and you take that client from them, you already know that that's a serious client that's out looking.
Yep.
And you know that probably that they're pre-approved because they're doing the footwork. Usually people know to get pre-approved before you start shopping.
Yeah, right. Hopefully.
Hopefully. But even if they don't, that's an easy conversation to have because that's something that they're going to need, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how are you connecting with all of these agents? Are these just people you've known before, or do you reach out to agents? Do you go to these events? What does that look like?
I spend a lot of time on the MLS, and if I see a house that looks like it's priced well and it's staged right and it's got good photographs done, then I know that that's probably an agent that I want to work with, and I try to hold those houses open. And I've been lucky enough that I've been able to pull buyers out of there and actually form some deals through those open houses.
Okay.
So formed pretty solid relationships with those agents.
Understood. Right on, man.
Yeah.
Well, we've been jamming for about, believe it or not, about 35 minutes.
Dang.
Was it as painful as you thought?
Yes.
Well, do me a favor, because this has been working really well. I just finished everybody up since now you've been talking and you've been kind of handling everything. Just take a look into the camera. Tell us who you are. Tell us who you work for. Tell us who you're looking for as far as a client. We'll wrap it up. Don't look at me. Look at the camera.
All right. I'm Rocky Winston. I work for Spinelli Residential Group, and I'm looking for anybody that's looking to invest in the Austin area.
There it is. Call the man.
Yeah.
You did good, my friend.
Thanks.
We'll produce some content.
Hopefully.